Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us right when we're started. We are going to just wait a little bit so that way all of our attendees have an opportunity to join us and get settled. So yeah, just sit tight and we'll get the public hearing rolling here in a couple minutes. Good morning. Just a reminder, we are going to wait a couple of minutes. Uh, we're going to wait a couple of minutes to see if any additional attendees are planning to join us this morning. So we appreciate your patience while we're at a pausing point right now, but we will get started here shortly. All right, it would help if I turn my mute off. We're going to go ahead and get started then. Welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, and it is 10:07 a.m. This is the second of uh, two public hearings for the Batch 14 Paid Leave Oregon proposed administrative rules related to benefits, equivalent plans, contributions, and appeals. This rulemaking hearing is now in session, and it is being recorded to create an official record. Also, my name is Jacob Parpart, and I am the policy analyst with Paid Leave Oregon. I will be serving as the hearings officer today for the Oregon Employment Department's public hearing on the proposed rulemaking for Paid Leave Oregon. Also with us today is Tiavan Sievers, the senior policy analyst here at Paid Leave Oregon. She will be leading up today's discussion. We have a few things that we want to go over with you before we begin taking testimony. So I want to thank you in advance for your patience. First, the chat feature of this webinar will be used by our staff to provide links for you to use as a resource as we move through this hearing. Please look for those to show up as we move along. We will try and tell you when we're putting links in, but in case we don't, know that they will be there for you in the chat feature of the webinar. Additionally, if you are having technical issues, please use that chat feature to let us know. Everyone's microphones are currently deactivated except for OED staff, so this is the best way to inform us if you are having any technical issues. The question and answer feature is available to ask questions or to sign up to provide verbal testimony today. To sign up to speak, please add your name to the Q&A so that we know to call on you once the testimony period begins. We will call on you in the order that your name appears in that Q&A list. This helps us stay organized as we move throughout the hearing. If you have multiple rules that you'd like to provide testimony on, you only need to put your name in the list once. However, if you've already shared and would like to share again later during the hearing, you are welcome to add your name to this list again, and so that way you can call on you later. Lastly, we ask that you please provide respectful comments and questions during this public hearing. Our staff are working hard to continue improving this program, and we value your feedback. Today's public hearing is scheduled to run from 10 a.m. to 11:30, and we will be discussing the Batch 14 proposed administrative rule changes. Earlier this week, we hosted our first public rulemaking hearing on Monday, November 17th. Although these hearings have been scheduled for 1.5 hours for each session, we may end the hearing early if there are limited or no public comments, questions, or testimony. And if we can get that moved to the next slide. Oh, sorry, it looks like we might be having a little bit of technical difficulties. Apologize, we're going to need to pause the presentation shortly. The person who was running our PowerPoint was kicked out of the meeting, but we will see if we can get them to join us. All right. We're going to go ahead and get rolling again. Sorry about that. Along with the verbal feedback and comments we will be receiving today, we will also accept written comments from the public. Written comments may be provided to the department by emailing the OED rules inbox as written on the screen. Rules@employ, employ.oregon.gov. Please note that we are only accepting written comments through Friday, December 5th, with the cutoff time of 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Any written comments provided on this batch of rules received after this time will not be reviewed or considered during this batch of rulemaking unless the department makes the decision to extend the public comment period for everyone. This rulemaking hearing is for the proposed permanent adoption of the Paid Leave of Oregon Division's Batch 14 administrative rules. A link will be put in the chat where the public can provide written comments. Please note, this rulemaking hearing is not scheduled for individuals who have issues or other personal questions regarding unemployment insurance claims or the Paid Leave Oregon claims, or issues that are unrelated to Batch 14 proposed administrative rules. If you need information about your specific unemployment claim or have unemployment insurance questions, please contact the program through their website at unemployment.oregon.gov and use the Contact Us form on that website. A link will be added to the chat. If you have questions regarding the Francis system, please call the number on the slide, which will be added to the chat for you as well. If you are an employer or have questions regarding equivalent plans, you can use the Paid Leave Oregon contact number listed at the bottom of the slide and by selecting the appropriate phone options. If you are an employer and you have questions about Paid Leave Oregon contributions, you can use our contributions phone number listed on this slide by selecting the appropriate phone options. Please note that our main goal is to gather comments during this public hearing regarding the Batch 14 rules. We will not be able to respond to any previous batches of rulemaking for Paid Leave Oregon. If you do have questions or comments about a previous batch or other permanent rules for the Oregon Employment Department, please email the rules@employ.oregon.gov email address as listed towards the top of the current slide. After the public comment period closes, Paid Leave Oregon staff will review all testimony and questions and create a hearings officer report containing any responses. This report will be available on the department's rulemaking website after the permanent rules are in effect. If you have general questions or comments about the program, please feel free to send them through the Contact Us form on the Paid Leave Oregon website, paidleave.oregon.gov. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Tiavan, who will give a high-level summary of the recent rulemaking regarding the administrative rules for Paid Leave Oregon, as well as a summary of the proposed rules that we are receiving comments on today. Tiavan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jacob. So as mentioned, before we begin taking testimony on the proposed administrative rules, I'm just going to give a quick overview of the changes that Paid Leave has already completed regarding our administrative rules. And so to summarize, our first 12 batches of administrative rules since the beginning of the program, totaling 121 rules, are all final. In October, we also filed a temporary administrative order with the Secretary of State's office, which we call Batch 13. This temporary filing consisted of 2 administrative rules amendments to rules relating to appeals. And the temporary amendments are included with the batch of changes that we are discussing today, and we plan to make them permanent with this batch. Batch 14, which we are receiving public comments on today, consists of 22 proposed administrative rule changes. These changes include 2 rule adoptions, so new rules, 19 rule amendments, and 1 rule that is being repealed. The tentative timeline to have these rules become permanent is January 1st, 2026. I would like to point out that we did also intend to receive public comment on OAR 471-070-1300, which relates to the poster that employers post at their workplace to advise employees about their rights and duties under Paid Leave Oregon. However, because of a filing error, the notice of proposed rulemaking did not include the amended language for this rule, and we will therefore not include this rule in our permanent rule filing at the end of the year, and we will instead renotice it at a later date. So if you don't see that rule included today and saw it in the documentation, that is why. At this point, all previously approved final rule language can be found on the Secretary of State's website. So with that, I'm now going to quickly read aloud the administrative rule number, title, and provide a high-level summary of the rule for all the rules that are included in this batch. And a link will also be provided in the chat to a compilation of these rules. And I will read the rules off in numerical order and then provide a summary. So to start, we're proposing to amend OAR 471-070-0001, which is the rule that states the purpose of the program. We are amending this rule to remove language stating that all paid leave Oregon rules are contained in Chapter 471, Division 70, because following the passing of Senate Bill 69 in the 2025 legislative session, rulemaking authority for job protections, retaliation, and discrimination related to paid leave Oregon was assigned to the Bureau of Labor and Industries fully. The next rule we are proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1000, which is the definitions rule for benefit. We are amending this rule to add a definition for in loco parentis, clarifying how the term is applied under our statute in ORS 657B010. We're updating the definition for average weekly wage, so the effective date aligns with the date used by Oregon's unemployment insurance program, and to add a definition for electronic signature. The next rule we are proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1010, which relates to eligibility and qualifications for benefit. This rule is being amended to clarify that pre-placement leave, meaning leave taken prior to a placement for foster care or adoption, is limited to 12 weeks per child, and that additional pregnancy leave can only be taken once per pregnancy, regardless of the number of children carried. The next rule we are amending is OAR 471-1110, which relates to the verification of family leave to care for and bond with a child. The purpose of this amendment is to ensure that the verification requirements for bonding leave reflect the full range of legally recognized documents used to establish paternity or guardianship in Oregon, and to clarify how a claimant may show an in loco parentis relationship with a child. Finally, we are also clarifying some secondary documentation requirements regarding the name of the child on the document. Moving on to the next rule, we are proposing to amend OAR 471-070-1120, which relates to the verification of a serious health condition. This rule amendment clarifies that verification documentation for serious health conditions must be signed by the patient's healthcare provider when the claimant is requesting leave to care for a family member. And also, we're updating that the required information must include the patient's date of birth when different from the claimant. The next rule we are proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1130. This relates to the verification of safe leave. In this rule, we are clarifying that documentation for individuals claiming safe leave must either include the name of the survivor or of the child, if the child is the survivor. And secondary documentation is required to establish a family relationship when it's not shown by the primary document. We're also amending the rule to clarify how a claimant may show an in loco parentis relationship with a child. The next rule we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1250. This relates to claimant designated representatives. We are amending this rule to remove any provisions related to representation of incapacitated claimants because those provisions will be moved to OAR 471-070-1260, which I will speak to in a minute. And they will, in that rule, be combined with provisions related to representation of deceased claimants. And this follows the passing of Senate Bill 858 in the 2025 legislative session. The next rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1260. This relates to authorized agents of an incapacitated or deceased claimant, as I just mentioned. So this is a new rule that we are adopting to implement statutory changes made to our statute, ORS 657B090, And as I mentioned, these changes were made by Senate Bill 858 in this session this year. And this bill authorized representatives of incapacitated and deceased claimants to act on their behalf. And as required by the bill, this rule provides the requirements for designating an authorized agent, and it establishes when an agent's authority ends. And then, as mentioned, the existing provisions that we already had for incapacitated claimants were moved to this rule. The next rule that we are proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1310. This relates to the employee notice to employers prior to commencing leave. We are amending this rule to remove language that relates to the timing and frequency of the notice for consecutive intermittent leave after the initial notice that an employee gives. We are removing this language because our statute, or 657B040, does not provide specific authority to describe requirements for different leave schedules. So we cannot currently speak to any requirements for intermittent leave days, for example. We're also amending this rule to clarify that the employer must provide their written policy and procedures regarding any required notice to all their employees, not only employees that were found to be eligible for the program. The next rule that we are actually repealing, not amending, is OAR 471-070-1330. This relates to job protections. And we are repealing this rule due to statutory changes made by Senate Bill 69, passed in the 2025 legislative session, which assigned rulemaking authority for oversight of job protections, retaliation, and discrimination related to paid leave Oregon to the Bureau of Labor and Industries, BOLI. The next rule that we are proposing to adopt, this is a new rule, is OAR 471-070-1350. And this relates to active benefit years under an equivalent plan and subsequent benefit drawdown. We're adopting this rule to describe how Paid Leave Oregon acts on receiving information about a claimant's equivalent plan leave usage. More specifically, it describes how paid leave draws down benefits if an employee previously received benefits under an equivalent plan, to prevent an employee from exceeding the 12 or 14-week leave entitlement that they have in a benefit year. The next rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1450. This relates to benefit payment methods, and we're just removing the specific reference to Relia Card Visa from this rule. The next rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-1465. This relates to payment due to deceased individuals and abandoned payment. This is a very simple change. We're just amending it to remove an extra space in section 1 of the rule. Now we're moving to rules relating to equivalent plans, and we are proposing to amend OAR 471-070-2210, which relates to the application requirements and effective dates of equivalent plans. We're amending this rule to fix an inaccuracy in the example regarding the due date of reapproval application. The next rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-2230. This relates to reporting requirements for equivalent plans. We're amending this rule to update the information that equivalent plan employers are required to provide on their aggregate benefit usage report. Moving on, the next rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-2330. This is the rule that relates to the written notice posted to employees of rights and duties by equivalent plan employers. The purpose of this amendment is to require that employers with approved equivalent plans must update their notice poster if the Oregon Employment Department makes changes to the requirements pertaining to the notice poster. The next rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-2460. This relates to employer withdrawals of equivalent plans. And this rule amendment is being made to clarify the timeline of when a withdrawal becomes effective. Now we have a couple of rule amendments related to contributions. The first one is OAR 471-070-3010. This relates to the method for determining the contribution rate and the maximum wage amount. We're amending this rule to remove Section 3, and the reason for this is that our statute, ORS 657B150, describes that the Social Security Index is used as the basis for adjusting the maximum wage amount, so this is not needed in rule. The next rule that we are proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-3100. This relates to the localization of work. We are amending the title and rule language. This was previously called place of performance, to align with statutory changes that were made to ORS 657B175 by Senate Bill 913 in the 2023 legislative session, and to improve overall clarity of the rule. Finally, we have a few rules related to appeals that we're proposing to amend. Starting with OAR 471-070-8000, this relates to the department's representation in a hearing. We are amending this rule to comply with changes made by Senate Bill 913, which was passed in the 2023 legislative session, which made changes to ORS 657B410 regarding appealable items. And we are also making permanent temporary rule changes to remove the requirement that the Attorney General provides approval for the agency to represent itself in paid leave contested cases. The next rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-8025, which relates to late requests for hearings. And we're amending this rule to clarify that all late hearing requests will be referred to the Office of Hearings and Appeals for a determination. And then finally, the last rule that we're proposing to amend is OAR 471-070-8050, which relates to the hearing itself. And we're amending this rule to align with changes to ORS 657B410, following the passing again of Senate Bill 913 in 2023 and Senate Bill 858 in 2025, which authorized representatives of incapacitated and deceased claimants to represent them in proceedings, and also directs the department to set a maximum amount a representative may charge and to describe rules or procedures that the representative must follow. And then again, this rule also makes permanent temporary rule changes from batch 13 to remove the requirement that the Attorney General provides approval for the agency to represent itself in contested cases. So those are the 22 proposed administrative rule changes that we have for discussion today. Just before I turn it back over to Jacob for the public testimony portion, I do want to thank you all for making the time today to provide feedback and help us improve the program. We really appreciate it. With that, back to you, Jacob.
Thanks, Tiavan, for the brief summaries of the draft rules. That was quite a lot, and you navigated through them very efficiently. I do have a few points I want to repeat before we get started on the public testimony. You can sign up. The first is that you can sign up for our bulletin and newsletter to receive updates on the Paid Leave Oregon program and learn when informational sessions are scheduled. A link describing how to sign up for bulletins and newsletters will be provided in the chat. Today's hearing and the previous hearing held last Monday were scheduled so that Paid Leave Oregon and the Oregon Employment Department can receive comments and testimony regarding the Batch 14 proposed administrative rules for the Paid Leave Oregon program. Any questions and comments related to unemployment insurance or specific unemployment insurance claims should be sent to that program through their website, unemployment.oregon.gov, using the Contact Us form. And any questions relating to the Paid Leave Oregon program, specific Paid Leave Oregon claims, should be addressed through the Paid Leave Oregon Contact Us form on the Paid Leave Oregon website, paidleave.oregon.gov. Links for both those websites should be added to the chat. If you would prefer to submit written comments about the rules and not verbally testified today, you're more than welcome to send written comments, testimony, or questions on these proposed rules to the rules inbox, which is rules@employ, EMPLOY, .oregon.gov, as shown on the screen. Please remember, though, that the deadline to submit written comments for these Batch 14 rules to have your comments considered is the deadline is 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday, December 5th. As we start the public comment portion, please put your name and rule number that you wish to comment on in the Q&A feature of this webinar. This will let us know that you want to submit verbal feedback during the hearing today. If you'd like us to read your comment, we can do that as well. Please just write out your question, comment, or testimony in the Q&A chat. Otherwise, if we see names, we will call the names in the order they appear in that Q&A feature. And we plan to get through as many comments as we can within the time frame allotted, which we have about 58 minutes scheduled for the remainder of the day. However, just a reminder, we may end early if the comments are limited. Comments, questions, and testimonies are limited. We will give everyone who wants to provide verbal comments a few minutes to submit your name in the Q&A chat. Then we'll start calling on names. Once you have been identified and called on, we will enable your ability to unmute. For the record of the public hearing, please state your name and your preferred pronouns if you have one. If you represent an organization, please state which organization you are representing and which rule number or numbers you are planning to provide comment on. If you're providing comments on all or more than one of the Batch 14 rules, please indicate that as you change between each rule during your testimony. If your comments are not related to this batch of rules, but are still related to administrative rules for paid leave Oregon, um, we will ask that you actually submit those to the rules inbox as shown on this slide. And lastly, as mentioned earlier, if you have questions on Francis Online or Paid Leave Oregon program, we encourage you to use one of the phone numbers listed on this slide to get more information. This hearing is specifically meant for receiving comments on the Batch 14 administrative rules, and we are unable to help with questions specific to any claim or personal situation regarding our program. We'll now begin calling on you to provide your testimony for the record. Please keep your comments short and concise. We ask that you limit it to no longer than 3 minutes to allow everyone a chance to speak, and so that way we can gather an accurate representation of your testimony. If you have an interpreter with you, please let us know so we can allow for extra time. And then please note that if you have an extended testimony, we may bring up a 1-minute remaining slide on your screen to notify you that you are nearing the end of your time to speak. We appreciate your understanding and allowing everyone an opportunity to provide testimony today and to maintain clear and concise testimonies for our official record. All right. And with all of that being said, we don't have any names or questions in the Q&A. And I'm not seeing anything additional in the chat. So for now, we are going to just hang out for a bit and see if any questions come up. And just to repeat what Tiavan said earlier, just want to thank you for your times, for you making time to spend it with us this morning, and for any potential feedback that you may provide to help us continue improving the program. As a reminder, you are within the Batch 14 Paid Leave Oregon public hearing number 2 for proposed administrative rule changes. We are currently at the public testimony time, and we are waiting to see if any names, questions, comments, or testimonies are added to the Q&A feature or chat features of this webinar public hearing. At this time, we haven't received anything, but we plan to continue hanging out and waiting to see if anything comes in. Um, and we want to thank you again for attending with us this morning, and we welcome any questions, comments, or feedback. As a reminder, we are currently in the public testimony portion of today's public hearing for the Batch 14 proposed administrative rules for the Paid Leave Oregon program. We are currently waiting to see if we get any names of individuals who would like to provide verbal comment or any written comment or testimony provided to us, whether in the Q&A feature or the chat feature um, of this public hearing. We haven't received anything so far, so we're just going to keep hanging out for a little bit longer to see if anybody wants to provide either verbal comment today or written comment that we can read aloud for the record of this public hearing. For those who may not want to provide today, I do want to remind you that we are accepting written comments in our rules inbox. That's rules@employ.oregon.gov. That inbox is specifically for questions, feedback, testimony on our administrative rules. For specific feedback or testimony about the Batch 14 rules, our public testimony period is open until December 5th to 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please feel free to provide written testimony on these proposed rules before we move forward with them by that deadline. Other than that, thanks for hanging out, and yeah, we're gonna keep hanging out to see if we get any questions or names that would like to provide testimony today. Thank you so much. All right, so as we are nearing the end, I just want to give one final call. We are going to probably end around 10:45 today, just for the verbal feedback that we'll receive. So again, just a reminder, you can send your written testimonies to the email on the screen. But again, last call for the public hearing today for verbal feedback. All right. The time is currently 11:20 or sorry, 10:43 a.m. and we are going to move towards uh, closing out today's public hearing. Um, if you wish to provide written comments on these proposed administrative rules, but did not have a chance to formulate a question or get something prepared, we encourage you to send an email to the rules@employ.oregon.gov email. It's on your screen, but we'll also add it again to the chat. And um, I want to thank you for attending today's Oregon Employment Department's rulemaking on public hearing for the Batch 14 proposed administrative rules for the Paid Leave Oregon program. We didn't receive any feedback today, but we do maintain these recordings for the record to maintain official reports. Any written comments that are sent to the rules inbox will be included with the hearings officer report following the closure of the public comment period. This current slide shows where folks can see the draft rules on the Oregon Employment Department's rulemaking webpage, and we will add a link to the chat for ease of access. If you have general paid leave Oregon questions, visit the Contact Us page on the Paid Leave website, paidleave.oregon.gov. If you have questions on individual claims or employer account details, please send a web notice through Francis Online account or give us a phone call. We have our phone number listed on this slide. You'll just need to select the appropriate options. You may also email questions about the draft rules to the rules inbox. That's located on the fourth slide on your, or the fourth item listed on your screen. Paid Leave Oregon also has a web page to keep us we keep up to date for employers, employees, self-employed individuals, interested parties, and such. In addition to any comments that we've received between Monday's hearing, today's hearing, anyone may email written comments, testimony, or questions regarding these draft rules until the end of Friday, December 5th. That's 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to the rules inbox. Comments received after that deadline of Friday, December 5th may not be reviewed or considered unless the department decides to open it up for everyone. Thank you all again for taking time out of your Wednesday and attending and participating in the Batch 14 rulemaking public hearing. We really appreciate your interest and feedback. The time is now 10:46 on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and this public hearing for the Batch 14 Public or Paid Leave Oregon Administrative Rules is officially closed. We hope that everyone has a good day. Thank you so much.